All right, what's up, everyone? My name is Denzel Mensah. I'm a life, personal development, and relationship coach, ENFJ 911. And today we're pretty much going to be talking about the importance of idealism and dreamers. Let's get it. Okay, so the reason why I started to think about this topic in particular was actually, there was a few things that kind of brought it to my attention. But recently, last month, December, I got to sit down with two wonderful women, and we had a conversation about something that had occurred about a couple years ago when I was working as a server. There was a table of elderly white people, and they weren't my table, but I was hearing from all the other servers, and they were in the center of the restaurant, that they were openly discussing how racism, well, not racism, but slavery should still be a thing, and it wasn't that bad. So all the other servers were like upset about it. They were talking to me about it. They're like, how could this be a thing, and all of that. And I'm not gonna lie. I went on Twitter and I actually did take a picture of the table and I started tweeting about it. I started talking about like, oh yeah, like this is not okay. Like, and how can this still be a thing? Whatever. So my first jump was judgmental, probably rightfully so. But then after that, I actually started to really think and reflect. And I was like, well, now I'm actually genuinely curious. Why? Why do these people who are probably well in their at least late 60s, at least, why do they believe the things that they believe? Even if I can't convince them otherwise, I am genuinely curious as to why they believe that it is better for black people to be slaves in this day and age. So I went to them. Yeah, I approached their table. I knelt on one knee at the side of their table, and I was like, hey, I am not here to start any trouble, create any static. I'm just genuinely curious. I overheard y'all's conversation, and I wanted to, just inquire like why that might be. And they were actually very calm and very polite, very gentle. And we had a pretty good conversation. I won't go into the details of that conversation, but some of the things that they brought up was like, oh, well, slavery was everywhere in the world. And even in Africa, people had slavery. There were black people who had even black slaves. And, they were talking about how slavery helped build this country and, all of this other stuff. And so I could see where they were coming from, as in like, this is their reasoning. I'm not saying that it was right, but I did also explain to them, and I broke down to them, like they were even talking about in the Bible there was slavery and stuff like that. And they were pretty much saying that, yeah, so in our world, they make it seem like slavery was just an American thing and that it was way worse than it actually is and all of that. And they don't even see the benefits from it. I went on to explain to them that even in the Bible, slavery, number one, was not done by race. In the Bible, pretty much people desired to be slaves because that was one of the ways that they paid off debt. So a lot of times people would choose to become a slave because they needed to pay off a debt that they owed. So like if you have money owed to Sally Mae and you can't pay that off, well, you offer to become a slave for 7 years, but it had nothing to do with your skin color, and it didn't mean that you were less of a person, just based off of that skin color. And you were getting paid. And then on top of that, after 7 years, then you're no longer a slave. So that was one of the big things that I ended up explaining to them. which was very different from, America, where they weren't really paying you anything at all. Or if they were, it was very, very little. It wasn't a choice. And then on top of that, it was often due, not even often, all the time, it was due to your skin color. So that was already like very different, So like I said, we talked about a lot of different things. And essentially the way the rest of that conversation went was they were actually very happy to have had that conversation, that discourse with me. And they told me, like, young man, I got to be honest, like, we have never spoke with an African American who spoke with as much eloquence and, gentleness and kindness as you did. And we're very grateful that you approached us and challenged our thoughts about this and yada, yada, yada. I appreciated that conversation. And I don't know how much I might have changed their minds. But I was just, I was really happy to at least have engaged them and gave them something to like think about and understand where they were coming from. Again, not that I agreed with it, so don't run with that, but at least understanding where they were coming from in that sense. So I told this story to the two women that I was sitting with, and they're like, why did you even approach the table? And they essentially started to like tell me that it's things like, it wasn't my responsibility to be a black savior, because there's this term where like white saviors and stuff like that, but like it wasn't my responsibility to be a black savior to go and educate these white people on things about black people and slavery and stuff like that. And for all I know I probably didn't even help the issue at all. For all I know, which is one of the girls said, they were like, yeah, for all you know, when you walked away, they were probably like, wow, he would have made a great slave. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? I personally highly doubt it. But you're right. I do not know for sure. And they both were just very adamant about how I shouldn't have approached that table. And they were pissed. They were really upset. They were like, why did you waste your time? Why did you waste your breath with such people like that? I meet people like this a lot. And I realize that I can come off naive, idealistic, and like a dreamer. But then I also start to think, but what if they're wrong and I'm right? What if they actually did learn from this and they went home and they talked to their grandchildren or their children that they probably originally brainwashed with these theories that they had, but now that they were able to be heard and then properly dissected, it gave them food for thought, and then they were able to go back and stop this generational racist thinking that they were probably passing down, that they really genuinely thought that they were justified for. Could be idealist thinking, but I realized the importance of idealist thinking. If Martin Luther King Jr., for example, did not have his dream and did not see it so clearly that white people and black people could get along one day, as much as we do today at least, and continue to go to the same schools and have equality and all of this stuff. If he didn't dream that, and if he didn't march for it, if he didn't do the things that he did, if he listened to the many people that were probably like, Martin, you need to mind your own business. You need to just do what the white man says and just do whatever, and kind of just go along with the flow. You're not going to change the status quo. If he did not dream and be this idealist that could push things, and he listened to the people that were like, you've been talking to these white people, ain't nothing going to change, Martin. There's not a future for us like this. They're always going to view us this way. Then we would not be where we are today. And that is why we need dreamers. That is why we need idealists. There are realists, and they tend to bring us down, and they're not doing it to hurt you. Those two women, they weren't trying to hurt me. They weren't trying to actually, even though they believed me to be a little bit naive, they weren't trying to say that, and they were white, by the way. But yeah, they weren't trying to tell me that I'm stupid for whatever I believed and all of that. It's just what they believed. But for those of us who are dreamers, idealists, we change the world. We see and we seed. We think about what the world could be, and then we try to push the world to become that. And I believe that from thinking in this way and from having such a mindset, we are able to have influence. There's a show called Ginny and Georgia that I absolutely love. And in the show, from season 2, spoiler alert, Ginny is now called upon to not only choose the book that the class is to read next so that they can explore the African American mindset and history and stuff of that nature, but she's also to lead the class in being able to, discuss the book and everything. When I heard about this, I was excited. I feel like if I were in her position, I would have actually taken the position that her father, who I personally believe that he's an ENFJ, despite personality database thinking he's either, and I called it. I just have to rant for a moment. I was like, I bet you that people are going to think that he's either INFP or INFJ. He's an ENFJ. The ENFJs can be calm, guys. But anyway, I was kind of on the side of him, like, this is actually a great opportunity to be able to change things from the inside out, whatever. But Ginny felt like this wasn't her responsibility and it shouldn't be this way, which I can understand. But one of the things that I think about a lot of times is when people often say things like, it shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't have to do this. I had a video with my friends Caleb, David, and my wife Jamila. And in that video, we talked about, are Black people responsible for the things that happen to them? And I try to play devil's advocate in that a lot and really assert my opinion heavier than it really actually was. But one of the things I really do believe is that although things should not be, which is what I hear a lot of times, like, it shouldn't be this way, it shouldn't be that way. The reality is, it is that way. It shouldn't be, but it is. So because it is, we should do something about it. Oh, we shouldn't have to educate white people. True, we shouldn't have to educate white people about our Black experience. But this is the reality. And if we don't educate white people, they're going to go to Google, they're going to go to TikTok, they're going to go to whatever the heck they're going to be doing. And then they're going to learn the best way that they can, or not learn and remain in their ignorance. And then they're going to come back to you and insult you unintentionally. And then you're going to be upset. But then you are kind of responsible because you sent them to Google rather than telling them what's actually okay and what's not okay. So yeah, we shouldn't have to do this. But even though we shouldn't have to, doesn't mean that that's not the reality and like we don't. I understand that a lot of times in being this way, it can bring a lot of trauma to Black people. It can traumatize them in the sense that they don't want to revisit certain thoughts. They don't want to revisit certain ways of thinking and all of that. And I get it. And maybe for those Black people, they should continue to rely on other people who are capable of holding that space and have the patience and, I guess, communicative elegance and eloquence to be able to explain the experience without going into a traumatized headspace. I get that. But to withhold those people is to also withhold us from advancing in history. We need to be able to get over our pride, swallow whatever it is that keeps us from doing whatever it is that we need to do, even though we shouldn't have to be doing it. Because until we actually start, realizing what's happening right now in reality and getting over ourselves and actually doing what's necessary, even though we shouldn't have to, we're never going to get to the future that we actually want. So I feel like an idealist also does need to be a realist in the sense that, yes, I am being real about our current situation. I need to understand that this is how the world looks like. I need to understand there are people who do have polluted thinking. I need to understand that there's not always going to be people who want to listen to me and hear me out. And there will probably be white people who are just going to be like, oh yeah, that could have been a nice slave kind of thing. But if I always believe that, then I'm never going to be able to bring change to the world and see the world that I want to see. And maybe some people believe that that world will never come. But if we always have people like that who just kind of have this cynical mind and see it as just being completely realistic, then we wouldn't have the world that we have today. It's because of people who also had the ideal while being real about what's going on right now and continue to strive for that future while being real about the present moment. That's how we're able to have the moment in the time and the place that we have right now. I personally believe that women should be able to wear whatever the heck that they want. They should be able to wear whatever the heck that they want without worrying about what a man is going to do to them because of that, no matter how revealing it might be. But the reality of the situation is that unfortunately they can't. And it's sad. In this world, if a woman dresses in certain ways, unfortunately, in my opinion, it raises the risk of a foolish man who doesn't have self-control to do the things that he does. And it's not even the woman's fault. I'm not saying that. But it shouldn't be that way. However, even though it shouldn't be that way, does not mean that it isn't that way. So because it's that way, then we need to continue to see the future and where it shouldn't be this way and continue to create ways in how to build more men who have better values that are not toxic masculinity in a way and all of that. But in the meantime, while we strive for that future, we should also recognize the reality and try to protect ourselves and lower the risks of the things that are happening to us right now. So when you're an idealist, it doesn't mean that you can't also be a realist. I think that the best ways to look at it is to have both. Strive for that future, see that vision, and continue to strive for it, continue to make thoughtful steps and processes toward it. But at the same time, also make sure that you realize the reality of the situation right now and protect yourself in that way. This one is for the idealists out there. If you have an ideal, make sure that you continue to hold it while being real, and do not allow other people who are more cynical in nature to push you down, because there's a reason why you have the dream that you have. You have the power to bring change to this world. Little by little, ripple by ripple. Continue to influence in the ways that you can. Continue to push yourself forward and continue to push other people forward while also being aware of where you are right now. And if you are one of those realists and cynical people, I do not believe that you mean harm. But when you see an idealist, try not to get in their way, because there's something special in them. And they just might be the person who causes that change in that future that you actually had thought was never possible. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching today. And if you have any thoughts, be sure to drop them in the comments below. I would love to hear any examples that you guys might have. If you view yourself as an idealist, if you view yourself as a realist, if you view yourself as both, what are some ways in how you think about it? If you have any disagreements, definitely let me know. I'd be happy to discuss. And yeah, I guess that's all. And don't forget, you matter. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. And if you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe. It actually really helps out my channel a lot, so that more people who actually care about what I want to say can actually find me a lot more easier. Also, if you did enjoy it, then maybe you'll enjoy a lot of my other content as well. So be sure to check out some of my playlists where you'll be able to find a lot of my older videos and older content. And last but not least, if you would like any profiling sessions or coaching sessions, be sure to check out denzelmensah.com, where you'll be able to book me and you'll see the rest of my services. But thanks again and have a great day.